Each year in the United States, approximately 10,000 lives are lost to DUI crashes, tragic incidences that account for nearly 30% of all traffic-related fatalities. In addition, around 290,000 people suffer injuries and accidents caused by impaired drivers. This is a story of someone who lived through the unthinkable, overcoming unimaginable challenges to reclaim their life.
It was February 11th, 2011. I was coming back home from a travel basketball practice. My dad picked me up. That practice, we had an Indiana Pacers Hall of Famer, an older guy who played in the 60s with the Pacers, and he was there teaching us just kind of some shooting mechanics, a little bit of fundamentals about the game. And it was a little bit later at night, around 8, 9 o'clock. My dad picked me up. I was begging him to sit shotgun. I was only 9 years old. He said no after me working him for a while. And we were about 5 minutes away from home at a nearby intersection by my house. And a guy was high on pot and T-boned my dad and I. I was out on impact, kind of was in a coma. My dad broke some ribs, but don't really remember. I remember the last thing I said to him before we got hit, and then the first thing a couple days later. So it was a little bit of a surreal experience, not really remembering or knowing what I was doing. And yeah, it definitely shaped kind of who I am today, and a lot of my childhood was off of that.
It was a normal ride home. He was just telling me about the practice and everything that had happened. And it was kind of a cold, rainy night when we had gotten to the intersection near our home. That was, just literally out of nowhere. There was nothing chaotic or even menacing about it. It was just kind of like a loud thud, and we were hit, probably dragged about 100 to 200 feet into oncoming traffic. And evidently the airbag went off. I didn't realize that the airbag had gone off until way after. Probably was in shock. Got out of the car, noticed that Brandon was bleeding from the mouth. Frankly, looked like he was already dead. And that's when everything just kind of started to happen. People were there to kind of help triage and assess the situation. And really at that point, it was, just a matter of people trying to help and call the ambulance to get somebody on the scene to kind of help get him out of the car.
I had actually just got home from picking up Allie from practice, and I remember I was sick, so I was just literally putting my pajamas on so I could go lay down. And I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, which I normally don't answer if I don't know the number, and I don't know why I answered it, but I did. And it was Randy calling me, and he just said to me, there was a really bad accident, and I need you to go. And I heard a firefighter or police officer in the hospital or in the background just saying, tell her not to come here. She needs to go straight to the hospital. And so he told me to just get a ride and get over to Riley Hospital, which is in downtown Indianapolis. And so I just started frantically calling my neighbors to see who could take Allie, because she was 7, and who could get me to the hospital. And so my one neighbor drove me, my other neighbor followed, and we pulled up literally the same time as the ambulance. And I remember going to get Brandon's favorite Build-A-Bear monkey and his Chicago Bears pajama pants, because I thought if he sees something like that, it'll make him feel better, because I did not understand the severity of the accident until I saw them pull him out of the ambulance, and he was not conscious, and he had a neck brace on and was attached to so much stuff. And then I realized, no matter what I brought, he had absolutely zero idea, what was happening.
When we had walked into the hospital, there was a whole emergency surgery team. There were doctors, there were priests, there were chaplains, there were deacons, there were probably 15 to 20 people waiting for us because they didn't know if he was still going to be alive or if he was going to make it. They immediately had done a CAT scan of his head, and they found that there was no bleeding on the brain, which was actually a really, really good sign, considering that they actually had to extract him from the vehicle. They actually literally had to cut him out of the vehicle. It was wrapped around him so severely. But to your point, yeah, we were then put into pediatric ICU, and that's where we kind of stayed for the next, handful of days until we got more information about his condition.
He was completely out of it. The only way they got a response from him is if they would take his skin and pinch it and twist it just to get like a pain response. And he would literally like open his eyes for a second and then he was back out again. So I think it was day 2 of him not waking up that the neurosurgeon said, there's something more going on and we need to do, because they had done a CAT scan in the emergency room, but said we need to do an MRI because a CAT scan doesn't always show everything. So it was then that they did the MRI and then confirmed that he had a diffuse axonal brain injury and that we just were going to have to wait to see when he would wake up. And they told us like when he woke up, his whole personality might be different. If he was a straight A student, like we needed to be okay if he was like a C or a D student, because they didn't know what areas of his brain were going to be impacted.
His brain injury is actually diffuse axonal brain injury is like the technical term for shaken baby syndrome, where they take a newborn baby infant and they shake the head so severely that it creates catastrophic shearing and lifelong brain damage. So truly, the fact that he's doing as well as he is today we look at him as truly a miracle.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an unreal moment. I kind of obviously we had a whole bunch of visitors come in, people I knew, some close friends, family members, and when I woke up, there was a ton of people in the hospital room. My mom saw that I was awake, and before the accident, my mom went to Marquette University, so we're big Marquette basketball fans, and before the accident, she ordered me my favorite player on Marquette's jersey, and I woke up and she was holding the jersey in front of my face when she realized I was awake, and after 3 days of not knowing my parents' names or really what I was doing, I go, that's my Darian Johnson Odom jersey. My mom was kind of upset by that I couldn't remember her name, but I knew whose jersey that was being held in front of me. But it was weird. It felt like I just woke up from a nap. It was like I remember what happened right before, and then I wake up in a neck brace with cuts all over my face and in a hospital bed, looking at my favorite player's jersey that I just got. So yeah, it was kind of a feeling I'll never forget, kind of waking up and not really having any recollection of what happened, didn't know where I was, what happened, but felt like I just woke up from a 45-minute nap and 3 days had passed.
Wake up like we were ecstatic, just to see that he was awake and he started talking. But I personally, and I don't know if you felt the same way, I felt like his personality was a little different in the beginning. Like he was always super warm and cuddly when he was a kid, and he was just like kind of much, I don't know if colder, but
little more stoic.
Yeah, with us, but with his sister, like she is the one who could get emotion out of him, and so we actually kept her at the hospital and didn't send her back to school because she could get him smiling and laughing. But he wanted to know what happened because he didn't remember anything, and so. But we had his favorite jersey that he was waiting for. It was funny because when he first woke up, like they'd ask him if he knew who we were, and he didn't. But the second he saw that jersey, he knew what jersey he was waiting for.
He had some, physical therapy. It literally went from the hospital telling us that he could be hospitalized for a year to learn how to walk, talk, eat, all those types of things, to on the 6th day, he literally left the hospital. He could have walked out of the hospital, but they made him sit in a wheelchair type of deal. So he had some physical therapy to make sure that everything was fine. He did do some neuropsych testing, some speech
therapy.
testing, speech therapy. They put a plan together for him in school just in case he had any difficulties. But another miracle out of this whole situation was Brandon maintained straight A's really through grade school, middle school, and high school, despite the traumatic brain injury that he had. So he was never able to run very fast, and this didn't change it. But in all seriousness, he was able to maintain his physical fitness and his athletics. They did tell him to essentially never box or fight or do MMA or do any type of football, because the brain injuries that are sustained almost on a play-by-play, quarter-by-quarter basis, considering the head injury that he had, could be really catastrophic for him.
Yeah, so I missed my 9 and 10U travel baseball years. Baseball was the first sport I was able to come back for. I sucked. I mean, I went like over 30 my first 3 weeks, and was trying to get back into the game. But one thing that kind of really frustrated me was the only way they would allow me to play baseball is if I put Kevlar inserts in my hat, which are Kevlar is what cops use for bulletproof vests. And I had this really, really thick, I hated it. It was this big hat with these Kevlar inserts so that it would protect me if a ball hit me in the head. And I absolutely dreaded it, and it made everything so horrible. But I was just thankful to be playing baseball again and out there with my friends and competing like I loved doing before the accident. So that was like the only real difference, other than I wasn't playing well and I had to wear really heavy Kevlar inserts in my hat. But it got me back on the field, which is what I was most excited about. As soon as the accident happened, when the cops got to the scene, they checked both vehicles. They found marijuana in his middle console, which, and they drug tested him. He was high. Also was under the, he also was drunk. So he was drunk and under the influence of marijuana. So really wasn't in the mind space to drink or to drive, I'm sorry. But definitely shaped my perspective as I grew older. I kind of shied away from drinking or anything along those lines because I didn't want to put anybody else in the same position that I was put in and risk having that happen to anybody else, which I know is a very slim chance if you're smart and actually think about your actions, but still made me nervous kind of knowing the impact and seeing what it did to our family and to myself. I didn't want to ever risk doing that. So as soon as I turned 21, still was kind of a little hesitant to start drinking. And now if I go out, if I have some drinks, if anything touches my lips, I will not drive. I'll either walk or get someone to pick me up. And I'm really cautious about that stuff just because seeing and living through what drunk driving can do and being under the influence of anything, it's life-threatening, and I don't want to ever put anybody else in that position. So I'm very cautious and think long and hard in my decisions. And if I'm going out, I want to have a plan how I'm going to get home and give a lot of thought to that so I can prevent myself from ever being in a position that I might make a poor decision as he did and put someone's life in jeopardy.